There are many apocalypse scenarios humans might trigger, but one is already unfolding. Overpopulation. This crisis brings resource shortages, lack of space, rampant illness, unbearable heat, escalating conflicts, and more. Could overpopulation actually push Earth to a breaking point? Could it even become something as extreme as a black hole? Let's dive into the numbers and implications. Imagine Earth, currently home to around 8 billion people, suddenly reached a population of 1 non-alien. The impacts would be cataclysmic. Air pollution would skyrocket, exacerbating respiratory issues like asthma and creating fertile ground for cancer, as confirmed by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. Disease spread would be rampant. Overcrowding would fuel outbreaks of deadly infections like meningitis, typhoid, and cholera. Pandemics would become a permanent feature of life. And carbon emissions. With every additional child estimated to add roughly 9.5 tons of CO2 per year, an explosive population increase would plunge us into a severe environmental crisis. Food and water shortages would follow swiftly. The planet simply lacks the resources for such a vast population. Marine life would vanish due to overfishing. Wild and domestic animals would be depleted, and attempts to increase livestock would lead to overgrazing, which in turn would degrade soil, transforming fertile lands into deserts. Drinking water shortages, already affecting 1 billion people, would become universal. According to the WWF, a population of 1 non-alien would increase water demand to a degree that could never be met. Competition over scarce resources would breed intense conflict, both between and within nations. These aren't hypothetical problems. Earth simply lacks the physical space to host such numbers. Even if every square meter of dry land were filled, the density would be untenable. For every square meter, there would be around 7 quadrillion people. Imagine stacking them in a human pyramid that stretches beyond the atmosphere. What if we drained the oceans to create more land? The total surface area of Earth, including oceans, is approximately 510 million square kilometers. But even then, this hypothetical overpopulation would yield 2 quadrillion people per square meter, covering Earth in 1 trillion layers of humanity. To sustain such numbers, with our current average population density of 50 people per square kilometer, we'd need 20 Oilian square kilometers, which is equivalent to cloning Earth 134 quintillion times. Now, the black hole question. Adding this massive population would increase Earth's mass by at least 62 non-alien kilograms, more than the combined masses of Earth and the Sun. Yet, even with such immense mass, Earth would lack the temperature and capacity needed to collapse into a black hole, which typically requires a supernova event. Biologist Edward Wilson estimates Earth's carrying capacity at 9 to 10 billion people, limited by finite biosphere resources. Joel Cohen, a biologist at Columbia University, concurs that Earth's peak population remains unknown, but is unlikely to support numbers approaching a non-alien. By 2050, the UN predicts Earth will hold 9.8 billion people and over 11 billion by 2100, a potential tipping point for disaster. Overpopulation already pressures us. Cities like Tokyo, Delhi, and Sao Paulo each house over 20 million people, straining infrastructure and creating environmental hazards. Today, 250 babies are born every minute, and with technology extending lifespans, overpopulation shows no signs of slowing. Analysts suggest education on environmental and financial impacts of large families, which may help. Whether it's enough remains to be seen. It's doubtful humanity will reach the unfathomable scale of 1 non-alien, but it's still wise to consider sustainable steps for future generations.